That one.
The red one?
Ano, porta las birras? You got that one. Just open up. All right. Here's your
I've got long legs.
rock music. All right. Yeah.
Yes, thank you for the beer.
This is yours. Yeah. All right. Well, for those who don't know who Cecilia is, you probably. There's the door over there. I mean, you paid to see her. Obviously, you should know who she is. But she's the real definition of a maker, right? She studied biology. Then she complemented her studies with architecture. I don't know if that really made sense at the time. It doesn't make sense to me. So you probably were thinking about like.
It doesn't make any sense.
Right. You were thinking of building animals or plants. I don't know how it turned out. But you went on and founded Makers of Barcelona, biggest co-working space in Barcelona, and to me, the coolest one in Barcelona. There's always events, acceleration programs going on. All of them, I mean, all this side is people from Makers of Barcelona. Obviously, it's all and this side is all my cousins, so it's okay. And
it feels like a wedding.
It feels like yeah, it's like some sort of wedding. Then she also complemented, you ended up like having this bunch of businesses that revolve around one another that kind of complement, and that's probably going to be my first question, right? You launched Future Funded, which is a platform to crowdfund and try to fund the trainings for, what the hell's going on? There's things like falling out. All right, it's the motion of the event, right? And you fund the training of the new generation of female entrepreneurs. You've got Meet, which is a creative agency for big corporates. You've got Fab Cafe, which is also an innovation lab that you've got there. Also in Makers, actually Makers is 2 separate buildings. So, well, thank you for coming. Welcome to Start Grind. And which one should we be talking about?
I have no idea, but I am so touched that there's so many people. You guys almost make me cry that there's such a big crowd. So thank you for coming, and I'm going to try to do my best not to bore you. So I'm glad that we have beer, because that will make this conversation so much more interesting. But I think all of you guys should have beer, because it will make you guys
It's product placement, isn't it?
So yeah.
All right.
So where should we start?
I think I just wanted to cover a little bit briefly. What's this story? What sort of environment did you grow up in? And then we will build up from here.
Okay, so I'm from Hong Kong. I was born in Hong Kong. I grew up in Macau. For those of you who haven't, have heard of Macau, which is this really strange Portuguese colony right next to Macau, right next to Hong Kong, which is kind of sort of like Las Vegas.
All right.
I grew up in the casino.
Not inside one.
Inside one. Both of my parents worked in the casino.
All right.
I knew how to play poker before I knew how to walk. So
all right.
Yeah, don't play poker ever with me. Yeah, and I knew all the tricks too. So.
All right.
So I grew up there until I was 14, and then I went to the U.S., moved to the U.S. So those were crucial years, because those of you who had spent their teenage years in the U.S. know how cruel, all the movies you have ever watched in like the U.S. movies about high schools, like got locked, in lockers, been put stickers in the back like go back to your countries. We're not going to go into that, but like all
There's a bunch of Americans over there.
I know. I'm American. I'm proud to be an American.
Yeah.
So I went through that stage of my life, and then I went backpacking. No, actually, no, backtracking. I did biology. I wanted to be a neurosurgeon, actually.
Great.
So I did 2 years of neuroscience, and then I did MCAT. So MCAT is this test that you have to do before getting into medical school. And I bombed it like big time. Basically, I just Christmas treed, the whole entire test. I got the result back, and it says I have about 3% of a chance of getting into medical school, right?
Yeah.
3%. So I said, fuck that. Oh, can I curse? I'm sorry.
Yeah. It's perfectly fine. We're gonna be
so I
more.
said, fuck this shit. I'm not gonna. Is this?
We're being recorded. Yeah.
Okay. Can we just do the beep afterwards? Okay.
Yeah, we can do it. We've done it in the past.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was like, fuck that. And I said, I'm just gonna go to study architecture, right? I don't know, why not? So,
yeah, why not?
Why not? So I told my mom. Yeah, I mean, I am from this really traditional Chinese family where, you can only be a doctor, a lawyer, or an investment banker. Yeah. Funny enough, none of this, make any sense anymore nowadays. But so I told my mom, I don't want to be a doctor anymore. And my mom said, fuck, you are going to be a doctor unless you get into Harvard. And so I studied really hard. Yeah. And just to, not be this good Chinese daughter, somehow I managed to get into Harvard Design School. So, except that once I finished my 4 years of degree of Master of Architecture, I told my mom that I didn't want to be an architect anymore. So, so
Sounds like a recurring theme.
So yeah, I had like a massive,
Yeah.
like epiphany, and I said I am going to go backpacking in South America, which is what I did. So I spent 6 months there, starting from Mexico all the way to Ushuaia. Fucking amazing. If you guys haven't done this trip, it's really mind-blowing. And then I landed, I met a boy. There's always a boy in the story, right?
Yeah.
I met a boy, fell in love, came back to Barcelona. I couldn't go back to the US, right? That would be like, going backwards. And so Barcelona is kind of sort of this place where, spend a day here, spend a week here, spend a couple months here.
And then you end up being trapped for like 15 years.
Yeah, it's like, oops, I got knocked up, right?
Oops.
Oops. What the fuck am I going to do now? Told my parents. I was like, wow, proud of me. No, I'm kidding. So I struggled while I was here, those first couple of years. I didn't speak the language. We're talking about I didn't speak Spanish. I didn't, not even Catalan. No one would hire me. I have a degree in biology. I had a degree in architecture.
Not the best CV, right?
No.
Not at time. Not in Barcelona.
Well, I didn't speak the language, so it was really hard. And so I struggled to get a job. And I had these two beautiful kids, right? So my ex, wonderful man, by the way. He is wonderful. No, I wasn't being sarcastic.
Yeah.
No. Oh my God.
What do they know?
Oh, they know. He's
I
not
don't know
here.
the story.
He's not watching this. Okay, so wonderful, wonderful guy. I owe him a lot.
Yeah.
And he got me a sewing machine. This was like, I don't know, 7 years ago. Yeah, he got me a sewing machine, right? And I was like, what the fuck?
What year was this?
This was 6 years ago. So
it was not like in the 16th century, right? Or you get like a sewing machine, like, yes, technology, right?
With all good-heartedness, right?
Yeah.
He got me a sewing machine, and it was sitting there.
There was no Twitter back then, right? No. Otherwise, it would have been like trending topic, like what the hell?
And I said, fuck this. It's sitting there. It's $100, and why not? I'm gonna play with it. Have you guys ever sewn before? Anybody here? A couple. So but you guys seen how it operates, right? And it makes it sound taka, taka, taka. And it makes this like super ultra, like really straight line and perfectly spaced. Come on, any perfectionist would be like looking at it and said, oh my God, this is like miracle, right? And this exactly was what happened to me. And I said, oh my God, I've never sewn before. This is like fucking amazing. And this is like, I made this. You know how like a kid running to their, you don't have a kid. Okay, so those that have kids are like running up to you and say, oh my God, Mommy and Daddy, look at this piece of shit that I made. But it's like, like they're like all happy and like bright-eyed because they made it. They made it. And so at that moment, I realized like, holy mother of God, this is like really powerful because every time I make something, there's a little bit of like self-confidence growing in me.
Yeah.
And so then from then on, I was just compulsively making shit that no one cared except for myself.
Well, there's a lot of people who care, I would say.
No,
but,
at that time,
not at that
no.
time.
So I made clothes, I made shoes for my kids, and then I started like building up, and I started made a website for my ex.
Right.
And I was really proud of it. I was like, wow, programmer, Cecilia the programmer. Not bad. And then I started hacking machines. I made what do you call those things that are, for the camera? You have to press the button, the trigger.
You're English native, I'm not.
It's just thanks. I don't know. Anyway,
technical
the trigger thing for the camera. I hacked that, and I realized this is the time when you can actually make anything. Anything, because you can Google pretty much any tutorial online, and you'll have the information and the knowledge. And because technology nowadays is relatively cheap, you can get a 3D printer for like a couple of $1,000 or even less now. In Fab Cafe, you can print it by the hour. Not that I'm selling anything commercial here.
Yeah, no. It's okay.
But like technology is relatively cheap. You can have Arduinos for like $30, right?
Yeah.
So technology is cheap. Now you have different source of funding. You have crowdfunding where you can, if you have a really good idea and you launch an idea in platforms like crowdfunding, you can raise your own funds. And above all, we have the power to communicate. Before then, you have to rely on big newspapers and big magazines, but nowadays you. And so one of the things that I would like for everyone to remember is that I think, and I could like claim this, is that for the first time in human history, and this is the big
That's
statement.
a big headline.
That's a big, big statement. For the first time in human history, us as individuals, we have the same innovation power as companies, as even nation states, as big organizations as never before, because we have access to these resources that we have never had in the history of human history. So that is really, and that's one of the things that is really revealing for me. And that's also one of the reasons why I wanted to build the communities of Mob and Fab Cafe and all these different initiatives, is that for people to be aware that we have a lot more power than we have never had before as humans.
Let's get into that. How did you realize that actually you could make money out of that, or you could live out of that? I mean, ideas are all good, but it depends on the implementation, right?
Ooh,
how did you come up with the idea?
Already?
No, we're not. I'm much more interested in how you materialize this. How did you bring up together like the whole community of Mob and?
So Mob started out with this kind of 6-7 years ago in Barcelona. The concept of co-working was still really vague, right?
Yeah.
So, and we didn't really want to build a co-working. We're not interested in real estate, nor are we really interested in like workspaces. What we were really interested in is how can we put all these makers together. And by maker, we're talking about people that are proactive, people that are really have an initiative, like have ganas, have, God, you're gonna have to translate.
Drive, yeah, they got the drive.
Have the drive to do something, and above all, do something together as a community so that we can help each other to innovate together.
Yes.
That was the premise of Mob. I don't think, I probably, if I take Finance 101, I would fail. So I'm not, money is not the objective. The objective is how can we create the biggest, strongest community that can help each other out in creating something together. That was the premise.
And every time I go to Mob, for instance, and let's talk about like building community before we go into like future and tendencies, there's something going on. There's like this positive vibe, this energy around. There's, you know, events going on, acceleration programs, coding boot camps, et cetera, et cetera. So it seems to me that you're really good at that. You're really good at like garnering crowds. How do you do it, and what are the differential values of the Mob family?
I think everyone contributes at Mob. I mean, it wasn't just something that we bring to the table. Everyone. And you can ask all the mobbers in-house that, you know, we will have birthday parties. We're a true community where every single person there contributes. Someone just gave me shoes the other day.
All right. Is that guy?
So we rely on the community itself to kind of communicate and to create that kind of content for us. It's not about me. It's not about Mob. It is all about them, in fact.
Okay. And how do you then you came up with Fab Cafe. Then you came up also with me, the consulting for innovation of that. How do you bring all of this together?
Okay. After I tell you, I will have to kill all of you because I would be sharing all my trade secret. But
Bit of a
but
job.
that's okay. It's like the beer here's all poison. No, I'm totally kidding.
Yeah.
So the second initiative, because we are makers, we're kind of compulsively making things. We did Fab Cafe. My co-founders here.
Yeah.
With David. So
you can explain a little bit better, yeah.
So Fab Cafe is curious. I went to Japan, I guess 4 years ago, and I visited the first Fab Cafe in Tokyo. Fab Cafe is like a coffee shop with digital fabrication tool. They have like 3D printers, you have laser cutters, you have machines that basically turn your digital design into physical objects. And so the first time I went to Fab Cafe in Tokyo, I saw a birthday party of a group of 8 years old, and they were all on the iPad. And I was like, the fuck, the kids are on their iPads again? Are you fucking
They don't read newspapers anymore.
I mean, it's a fucking birthday party. Yeah. Get together and fucking birthday party, right? So I'm sorry, I'm really vulgar when I'm drunk and on stage. So what were we talking about? Oh, Fab Cafe in Tokyo. Okay, so.
Yes.
So, and I realized what they were doing is that they were making drawings in the iPad so that they could engrave it in cookies with a laser cutter.
All right.
And each kid had a customized cookie as their birthday cake.
Yeah.
And I was like, mind blown.
Mind blown,
that was like so amazing. And I said, we have to bring this to Barcelona, and which is exactly what we did.
Because we didn't have this when we were kids, right? I had such a sad childhood, no iPads.
Kind of, sort of, no. But we have more
real
creativity,
right?
I think.
I wanted to bring this up just because it's important to give the background to the people before we delve into actually the main subject of the conversation, which is going to be like the challenges we have as humans in technology. And you want to talk about that because we are in the first time in history capable of setting up a business right now, right here for like $30, right away start operating, producing things that we can actually consume ourselves. So how do you see this is going to evolve? Do you see something that's already happening, or how long is it going to be taking to be democratized to all of us here?
It's already democratized.
It's already.
It's already. The problem isn't access to machines or knowledge or funding or communications. All those things that I've listed beforehand, these are already available to all of us. The problem is actually our mindset. So a lot of people would think that, digital fabrication, 3D printers, I've never done that before. Oh, it's really hard. It's actually not anything harder than printing a sheet of paper, 2D. So I think there is this, because of our education, this is not for us to blame. I'm not saying that we're useless. I'm saying that our education have kind of trained us this way. Imagine like for 16 years in all of our education, right? And what do? We're given homework, we're giving tests, we're giving exams, we're given things that we have to do. The moment that those things are taken away, what do we do? Okay, well, you wait for something to be given. We continue this paradigm in a work office, right?
You're like connecting the dots, right?
You're giving those assignments, right?
Yeah.
So we're not, as students, we're not really trained to think proactively, to think of like, okay, well, what do I want to do? So we need to very, very quickly revamp our education, but also like, how can we educate this population of people that have already gone through, shitty education?
Yeah, obsolete. Let's put it like that, right? Yeah.
Me included. I mean, I have 2 degrees that I have not really applied myself in. So how can we revamp some of these, I guess, mentality so that people can be more proactive, become entrepreneurs, become a kind of problem solvers on their own.
And so it seems to me that you're advocating for the idea that the educational system is obsolete, right? Because that's what I gathered.
Yes.
So what would be, in your ideal world, how would you overcome this? What would be your, the next steps? Would be, re-educating the universities, or completely canceling out the university and thinking about some other projects, or how would you do it?
Before I answer that, I want to kind of add a little bit of context.
Yes.
So, so there's something that I've been thinking of. I call it the social train. So the social train is something that we've been setting up years on end. We've all been on this train, right? And this train consists of us as kids hopping on this train, and we are asked to make good grades. And what for? These good grades is so that you can get into good universities. And what for? These good grades for universities so that you can get a good job, right? Get a good salary, so that you can buy the house, get married, have your 1.2, 2.4 kids. I don't know what's the latest number. Yeah. And then you live happily ever after. And this is the social train that we have been kind of like forced onto. Every single person in this room has been on this train. Now, the problem is that this train no longer works. And the reason is because kids and in universities as well, and no criticism in the university in-house, I'm talking about, a bigger global problem here, is that we're teaching skills to kids that are going to be obsolete. Actually, it's already obsolete, the skills that we're teaching them, right? And so they get jobs that they absolutely hate, they despise of, so that they make the money and buy shit that they don't need, and get married to a person that they would probably get divorced. And in the whole entire ride through, they're probably shitting all over the earth, leaving it very unsustainable. Yeah. And this is what the train had created. Now, don't get me wrong, the train worked really well 100 years ago. The train no longer works. And the scary part is that because it is moving, people think that we're progressing. It's actually going backwards. And we have no idea that a lot of people are just by defect. They're just hopping on this train without really thinking or processing this problem. So to answer your question about education, this is much bigger than just trying to solve education on itself. This is a larger global mindset of how can we change the way we think about why we are even here in the first place.
Do you think we're going to solve that through communities or even social tribes, if you will, like, maybe the co-working spaces or global online communities like the digital nomads, something like that? Do you think any of them is going to create any sort of impact that's going to create a major change in the system? Or
I think there is a couple of different layers of players that need to get involved. So It's not just, there's no one solution to this. So as individuals, we have to start thinking giving yourself a different mindset. Right? Mine, I got really lucky, the sewing machine. I mean, I make fun of it, but the sewing machine just opened up my eyes.
Yeah, it's a great story.
But other people would have other kind of initiative that will change their mindset as well. Education needs to change. Companies need to change. Governments need to change. So if we go back into thinking about how the power of innovation has been elevated, so as individuals, we have been elevated our innovation power, but so did companies. So us individuals are doing what companies used to do, and companies are doing what government used to do. So we've all kind of levitated. Now the question is what the fuck the governments are doing, right?
Exactly.
This is going to go into recorded, but
it's alright, I'm not sponsored by the government, is it right?
We kind of sort of notice what is happening in the political, discourse is that there is a breakdown in the political world, and this is precisely because they are in a very different innovation pace layer than everybody else.
They can't keep up.
They can't keep up. They can't keep up. But everyone has to do their part for us to be able to confront this paradigm shift.
All right, who's going to be accountable for these changes? Let's say somebody needs to lead this. Who do you think is going to lead this change? TED speakers, or is there any sort of institutions that are going to be leading the change?
So there's a couple of Singularity people here.
Yeah, I was going to go into that after this, but yeah, let's cover that.
So at the Singularity University, we talked
let's get into it.
A lot about the tragedy of the commons. Right? So tragedy commons is this, I'm sure you guys are familiar with it, but it's this concept of you're waiting for someone else to solve the problem. And whether it is climate change, whether it is, the famous story was this poor woman in New York where she was being, I think, murdered in her apartment complex in New York, and 17 people heard her scream, and not a single person called the police, because every other person thought that everyone else would have called the police, right? And so asking this question, why not you? Why not me? Why not all of you guys? And I think that
we can organize. Yeah,
I'm gonna talk later. Yeah. But yes, that is crucial. I keep saying mindset shift. I mean, that is going to be really crucial in terms of how can you be proactive, but not proactive in terms of, okay, I'm going to bring in another concept. So for the longest time, we have been very much economically driven as societies, right? Yeah. Everything is driven because we needed to have some kind of a quota. We needed to have some kind of a sales, or profit and loss, and we needed to end with some kind of an economic return. Sure. Everything that we do, from education all the way to your job, is to make that buck, right? At some moment, that's going to have to change because we aren't really put on earth to make that dollar, right? We aren't here to fulfill that economic return or objectives that have been kind of set up in this social train. So, and I'm saying this because I am very much pro, and I think this sounds really spiritual and shit, but I am not spiritual. And all those who knows me, I don't do yoga. I would like to do yoga. I don't do yoga. But I think one of the reasons why I'm saying this is because, and some of the conference people would always ask me, oh, is AI gonna take over? Are the robots gonna take over? Are we gonna lose all our jobs? Are we gonna and this panic and fear and my answer is yeah, fuck yes, they're gonna take over because we told them to take over. Yeah. I mean, we're giving them the tools to be more intelligent. They're gonna figure out how to make more money for us. And if we set ourselves the goal as economic objective as the final end, AI robots will always succumb that. But if our end goal is more purpose-driven or personal fulfillment, there's no amount of AI that could fulfill that, none whatsoever. So we need to rethink about our internal kind of reflection on why are we even living here? Why the fuck are we doing what we're doing? Why are we doing this 9-to-5 job when we absolutely hate it? I mean, I'm not the only person talking about this, social problem of happiness, of purpose, of but we really do need to start questioning that as technology is taking over a big chunk of our priority.
Can we go a little bit into Singularity University, because I think a lot of people are not very acquainted with this, and I think it's a very interesting story because we've got this access nowadays to really cool universities. Even you can study things from the MIT, any one of us can study courses from the MIT, and not a lot of people know about this. Singularity University and other really cool universities you've got platforms like Coursera and so on. So How was your experience? How did you get into it? And what are the kind of things that you learned there?
How many people have heard of Singularity?
Yeah, let's see.
Oh, wow.
All right, it's people have done they've done the homework.
Okay, so for those who don't know, there's Alicia as well. We did the Global Solution Programs together.
All right.
So Singularity University is this very avant-garde place. It's not actually a university.
Yeah.
It's an organization where what they wanted to do is expose people in what we call exponential technologies, and we're talking about AI, drones, AR, VR, nanotech, biotech, space tech, and I can go on, Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, all these different technologies. How can we use those to solve global challenges? And when we talk about global challenges, we're talking about the 12 that has been set up by UN. So food, water, refugees crisis, human rights, sustainability or climate change, and there are a list of these things that have been listed at the UN, and that's their principal purpose is to how do you apply those technologies in there. So we spent 62 days, and the setting is in NASA Research Center in California, and for those 62 days, I would say 14 hours every single day, Saturday and Sunday, sometimes they're like 36 hours straight. This is what we were exposed to. And so, and this year we were very lucky actually to have this topic of climate change. So a couple of very, very interesting companies came out of that initiative.
What is the biggest takeaway, and how are you implementing what you learned at Singularity nowadays, and in which way did it change you? There's an after and a before and after, right?
It changed me so much.
Yeah.
I can't, and you can probably ask Alicia, she'd be like up here with me.
Yeah.
It completely transformed my way of seeing the world.
Yeah.
On one hand, we're not even talking about the climate change aspect of it, because that really changed my understanding of how bad the situation is. But on the other hand, what I learned is that we're actually very much connected. In those 62 days, these 90 people from 47 different countries, and some of them are have 3 PhDs, and other people had massive companies and really transformative initiatives. We all got together and we spent those 62 days together. And what I learned was that collectively as people, we have a lot more leverage, a lot more potentials, and a lot more power. Adding to what we have access to technologies can do so much. So what I saw in firsthand was that there's something that we talked about at Singularity called the flow state. And so this flow state is this kind of an optimal self when you are so into what you do that it's like playing, I don't know, some of you guys might play piano, no? When you're in the flow state and you're playing piano, you're just playing piano. You're totally concentrated. But then what was really interesting was that what I've noticed is that not only is that you arrive to a state of flow individually, you arrive to the state of flow as a collective, as a group. Now, it sounded like really spiritual to me in the first hand, but when we looked deeper into how flow state works, it's actually very scientific. So when we arrive at a flow state and as a collective flow state, our biometrics get synchronized. So our heart, for example, emits this electromagnetic field, and when we get synchronized in flow, that gets synchronized. Our heart rate gets synchronized. Our, all of our biometric, our heartbeat gets synchronized. That's fucking amazing. So they have done tests in soccer players and football players. What they've noticed, there's this augment of superpower basically when the collective is working as a team. And they very quickly also noticed the person that is not working well and his biometric is not synchronized, right? So, and what I've noticed that once the collective is in flow, you add technologies to it, you add exponential technology to it, and this is how you scale up. Because one of the objectives in Singularity is that there is a massive impact. We're talking about 1 billion people in how these global challenges could be solved. And this is kind of sort of the formula that Singularity is using. And when I saw it firsthand, I was like, holy mother of God, this is the thing.
And how important is the diverse cultural background that each of you had? Because it seems to me that some of the global challenges are being tackled with a room full of a bunch of white dudes deciding on the future of the planet, and they're not taking into account other regions of the world. So how important was it that you had people from 57 nationalities, I think you mentioned?
It's how they had created the program. They had handpicked each individual's not because of their scores, but because of how complementary they could be. So 47 different countries, 52% women, 48% men, and 1/3 of us are from like entrepreneurial business developers, like business driven. 1/3 of them are scientists with like a bunch of PhDs.
Yeah.
And then 1/3 of them are actually lawmakers, policymakers, educators, and this is how
Architects. Yeah, there was one at least.
A couple. I wasn't the only one. So diversity is absolutely necessary. I'm drinking this beer. Pretty much it's not mine. Is it?
All right, yeah, it's yours. It's yours. we made sure. Yeah.
Oh, maybe I'm just really drunk. I'm already drunk.
That's good. Now,
what else?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, because one of the things you also wanted to talk is like the challenges we face and when there's technology that's more like getting into artificial intelligence, right?
Yes,
you always talk about how we are feeding the wrong data or how we are like teaching it in the wrong way. It's probably because, I don't know, in some ways biased, because most of the data we are feeding the machines or the systems comes from the industry, and the industry is already mainly male and white, to be honest. So how do you think that applies to the challenges you were trying to solve in Singularity University, or all these global challenges you're trying to solve as well?
So one of my biggest concern is that AI, or specifically machine learning, it learns from data.
Yeah.
And data currently is being created by a couple of selected giants. And these giants are people that are historically employing predominantly white males that are creating these datas and feeding these datas and understanding these datas. And so if we continue this path, we're going to have a massive issue of diversity, because we're continuing a vicious cycle of machines kind of behaving sort of very selective perspective voices of this group of people. Yeah. We're going to create the cycle. I mean, I'm going to be as simple as like, okay, what's the voice of Siri? What's the voice of Siri? Female. What's the voice of Alexa? You guys can answer me. Female. What's the voice of Google Home? Female, right? I mean, like, I can continue this. And what are these? Why? Because this traditional role, the assistant, like the secretary, this role has been assumed by women. So, we're continuing with the same type of like prejudices that we had previously with human beings. We're applying the same prejudices in technologies, and this is going to be problematic. Not because I am a feminist, but because having a lack of diversity is going to be an issue of understanding the kind of the global needs of the technologies trying to serve.
Let's say, like, recently there was even more like plausible example. I mean, in Google Photos and Apple Photos, you've got this face recognition. It works flawlessly if you're white, but if you're not, it's like
Asian?
It's all right.
No idea.
It's all right. You're not being recognized. So why? Because essentially it's a flaw in the system, right? You just teach the data with mostly white males or white people who have been traditionally and historically have had more access to photography, and therefore there's more data about them. But how about the other people who are not represented there? They should be also fed into the system, right? And therefore the system learns that only white people should be classified.
And
right?
I mean, historically speaking, I mean, this is not the first time that women or even other disadvantaged groups has been put in second place. But like, I don't know if you guys know, but the word computer used to be a word that described an occupation of a person. And the computer back in the 50s, the 40s, is a person actually doing computing. And they were mostly women. They were mostly women. And so, I mean, if you guys have watched the movie, what was it? Hidden Figures, you would know that the first few kind of like group of computers were all women. And what happened was that there was this kind of transition in that they needed to market the computer. And they needed to sell it to the general public. And the first thing they're trying to sell was video games. And who are they targeting? Boys. And so boys very early on, when they were transitioning the computer into a kind of a personal computing, they marketed boys in the first place. And so they had access to computers, and much more than women would be, like girls.
And management positions in companies who are obviously just men,
and
right?
that just kind of snowballed into what's happening today, and which is one of the reasons why we launched Future Funded, because we really need
Let's talk about that.
So Future Funded is the first and only crowdfunding platform to raise the next generation of women in tech. So we really wanted to increase the number of women in the tech world, not only because, like I insisted, feminist is a very, very loaded word, but because having a women in your startup actually increases your value of your company. It brings in more money, it brings in more economic return, it brings in a different perspective, and it has been proven actually in a lot of these statistics being made that having women in your team is much more valuable. And the sad thing is the latest UN report says that it will take another 100 years for us to arrive to equality between men and women. So,
is that the role of Singularity University also to try to accelerate some of these changes? Because some of these changes have been lingering around for a while, right? But do you think any of the teams coming out of Singularity are going to be speeding this shit up?
Not so much in the context of women and diversity.
Yeah, but other contexts, let's say.
But they are definitely very aware of this problem.
It's great to talk about that, but where's the action, right? Sometimes we feel like, yeah, this is being discussed, this is being talked, and we see this in forums and conferences, but like, where's the real action? Sometimes we just don't see it. Might be behind the scenes, right?
I think there are several. Like I said, all of these, everyone needs to do their part. So from education standpoint, so there's a lot of STEM programs being made geared toward women. There's a lot of awareness. There's a lot of university level program to get women in tech. There's a lot of coding subsidies for women to get into this. So I think there's a lot of support and there's a lot of awareness. But I think the principal problem is the women themselves. I think we're stopping ourselves short. We are saying, oh, this is really too hard, or this is really not for me, or I'm not really interested in this, and when in turn we should be interested in this. We should be interested in this predominantly for one reason. I mean, it's going to be if this is going to be the economic kind of like drive. People in programming, AI, machine learning, these fields are going to be predominantly the ones that are going to be the highest in terms of skill sets being searched by companies. So, ladies?
Step up, right? I was going to say, you obviously do a terrific job in driving people forward, in getting community together, and also, you're leading a bunch of businesses. But how much do you think your personal branding affects all of that? Because obviously you get a lot of exposure, and you go to events, you talk, your life is very public, to say, also in the social media. So how much does that really help you? Because there's a lot of entrepreneurs who don't really publish anything, and some of them, they say it helps a lot, right?
I don't know about personal branding. I do know that
maybe you don't do it consciously, right? But
well, I do know that because I'm not a person. I am a person of privilege now. I have not always been a person of privilege, and I think people relate to that. So I'm not you. I'm not a white guy telling that I have succeeded because it's easy. But if someone listen, I came here, I didn't know how to speak Spanish, I didn't know, my parents are refugees from Burma, there is a struggle involved and people could relate and they could understand. I think that gives, I'm giving them a kind of a, I don't want to say hope, but there is this possibility that, we can make it. You can make it, I can make it, anybody can make it. It's not, it's not exclusive.
No, of course not. Now I was going to say, because it seems like obviously after having dealt with the community at Startup Grind, and you tend to scout the potential speakers for Startup Grind, not only here but also in other countries, we gather some data, right? And some of them just tell us, at least in Barcelona, women are more in operational roles. They want to be behind the scenes, and they don't just want to come on stage. And sometimes when I approach them, do you want to be interviewed? Startup Grind's like, no, I'm going to send our CEO. He's the guy who's doing this publicly and all of that. So it really, I think we need more role models, right? Why do you think it takes for us to change all this situation?
I think so. I don't think I'm a good role model, though.
Well, I mean,
I'm drinking here on stage, cursing left and right.
She says you're a good model. There's at least one person in the room who said that.
I think we should all do our job. I mean, I cannot emphasize that enough. I can voice. I am loud as fuck, and I am so proud of that. But I mean, I think we all should. We all should. Yep. Women should stand up. And we are seeing a whole wave of women standing up with the Me Too happening, we're fighting back. And it is time for us. I mean, the future, I hate to say, this is not about men versus women, but the future is actually going to be women, because we will bring our value, our perspective, and our vision to what has been lacking. And I insist, this isn't about men versus women. This is about adding what is lacking.
Exactly.
So we're just coming onto the same privilege as everybody else.
You're also engaging a lot with corporates, right? Through Mean, your consultancy. So
Yes.
is it easy for you to engage with them? I mean, how do you approach them, and how do you face they are probably skeptical of this whole, because you bring a lot of disruptiveness, innovation, all of that, and corporates are famous for not having any of this.
Right.
Right?
So,
how do you approach them, and how do you convince them to change the model?
So let's backtrack a little bit.
Let's
because
backtrack.
Earlier I said about trade secrets.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna need another beer.
Yeah.
Can someone bring me a beer, please? No, seriously, can someone bring me a beer?
Yeah. It's not a joke.
Okay.
She needs a beer.
So MEAT stands for making extremely awesome things.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the concept behind it, is that when we first built Mob and we built Fab Cafe, we realized that our principal value are the people. And we have a great group of really talented people. We have Antelope here, who's doing like really amazing interactive designs. You know, we have Adam here, which is in media. We have like really amazing, really like, seriously, I'm not like selling my Mob is short, but like, then we realized, well, how can we leverage that? It's not the space, it's not the machines, it is really the people. So what we did was we set up this company, and what we built is we built on-demand teams. So companies will tell us, oh, we wanted to reinvent shoes, for example, right?
Yeah.
We had a apparel company that approached us, and what we did was we built the team. So we say, oh, you need apparel. Well, we will need and he wants to tap into technologies. So a technologist and an industrial designer, and we built the team. So I pimped my guys out.
Yeah.
I'm like the madam.
Yeah.
That's the reason why we call Mob like the mafia. But
You're the mastermind, though.
Exactly.
Mastermind.
So we built a team, and they built the team, and we bring them together so that, because they at the end have all the knowledge behind their company on how to build products, right? So we bring everyone together, and we innovate together. So my proudest project, our proudest project, was one with a pharmaceutical company. We did a 2-day project with them, and the pharmaceutical company wanted to look into how to apply tech into health industry. And we built a small device, which is a wearable that you can wear for autistic children so that they can express feelings, happiness and love for their parents. And so if you guys don't know, autistic children have limited means of expressing their feelings. So all they have to do is press the button, and it will send the heartbeat to the mom. And we teach the child to understand that this is what love is for, in their context. So that was really beautiful. See, it's beautiful.
That's really beautiful. I was going to express, like, I've been participating in a lot of projects that you have launched, like reducing the food waste, reconstructing like an abandoned part in Valencia. And so there's been a bunch of really cool initiatives that you guys have. But it seems to me like sometimes the social entrepreneurs or the companies tackling social challenges, you are alone in some sense, because it's not the hot shit technology like Wallapop or Typeform or whatever, right? You guys can change the world, but this doesn't make money, for instance. It creates another kind of impact that's not so material. Therefore, the government does get involved, but not so much. The companies, right? So sometimes you don't have all the support you've got. You know that Sharp Grind, we're at 300 cities, 115 different countries. So if you could launch a message that could be broadcasted worldwide in order to produce more like change, through us or through whomever you want, what would it be to increase more social change, more engagement?
So a couple of things I wanted to mention.
You can run for president now. Yeah.
No, thanks.
Not of Spain.
Because like the political system is really too slow.
Yeah.
And it really requires individuals for change to be made. So one of the messages that I learned from Singularity that has been like engraved in my head is that there's no such thing as a social entrepreneurship.
All right.
There's no such thing. And the reason is because every single fucking initiative that we do should be social.
Yeah.
I mean, our first and foremost priority should be social, should not be economical. And one of the reasons why I insist on that is I'm going to explain this concept that we also learned at Singularity called the machine economy. How many of you guys have heard of the machine economy? A few selective. Of course you want to come up and explain machine? No. Okay, so I'm going to kind of like draw out this really simple scenario that I'm just going to explain. So imagine that we have. So I have a self-driving car, right? I call Patricia, and you have a self-driving car called Jennifer, whatever. And I said, and I'm working in the back of my self-driving car because it's self-driving, right? It's autonomous, and you're in the back of your car working as well. So we're stuck in traffic, which actually would never happen in a self-driving car world. But let's say that something happened, we're in a traffic jam. You're in front of me, right?
Yeah.
Your Jennifer is in front of me. Patricia is in the back. And I have programmed Patricia to be able to negotiate. And Patricia said to Jennifer, hey, Jennifer, I'm going to give you 20 bucks. And the 20 bucks that she had just earned doing Uber once she dropped me off, right? And so Patricia said to Jennifer, I'll give you 20 bucks to move out of the way. So exchange, Bitcoin, whatever, like through the internet, you moved away, I keep going. Meanwhile, us human, we have no idea what just happened. Yeah. It was just a transaction between machine and machine, right? And I'm giving a very, very kind of silly, example of it. But you can already imagine the whole slew of possibility when machine could negotiate in terms of the money, right? In terms of economy. And because we have create machines in a way that they're going to be able to make money much more efficient than we do, right? So I'm being provocative, but maybe the next, billionaire may not be a person. It could easily be a machine, right? So why am I bringing that up? The reason why I'm bringing that up is because when that happened, how is money going to be relevant? How are we going to understand value, economic value, return, and business, and if we can't change we need to start rethinking of why we do the things that we do. Because if the end of the day, money is the end goal, we're all screwed. We're all screwed because machine will eventually take over, right? What's my point? What was your question? Sorry. I was too involved with the self-driving car, damn it, Patricia.
No, but that was a good analogy, because essentially this is how the internet works, just that we don't know it's machines talking at
but
each other.
But something is really amazing that is happening. I mean, we look back into, into history, right? In the history of, let's say, computers, right? We first built these machines, these computers that are doing, big numbers for us, woohoo, right? And then we added, what did we add? We added connectivity. So these different computers, we're talking about internet here, starting to be able to talk to each other, right? Wow, this is getting interesting. Then we added data, right? All of a sudden the computers can understand data, can understand the context, and then they can talk to each other meanwhile they're doing this. Now, what is happening is that what we're adding is intelligence. It's intelligence. Now we have this possibility of a scenario of almost replicating what we understand as human intelligence, because basically this is what we do, right? And so there in the AI world, in the intelligence world, where very often than not we talked about what is the difference between narrow intelligence and broad intelligence, right? Narrow intelligence is this thing that the Google Go machine that can play Go and can beat the champion in 2.4 seconds. They're really, really good at playing this, but if you play tic-tac-toe with the Go, I mean, you'll be like, what the fuck? I have no idea, let alone cooking something, right? They can't navigate because they're only taught for one thing. Now, when we start introduce, IoTs, and I keep giving these examples of the Google Home because I'm going to go back to that. But basically, we're adding network into these machines, and when they start learning to each other, they will be able to have this broad intelligence that we have. So we might not be able to beat the Go machine, but we can play Go, we can play chess, we can play tic-tac, we can cook, we can run, we can do a slew broad of very diverse different tasks that AI can't do. So we talk about singularity. And so the word singularity is when you have this moment when when AI succumb the intelligence of a person. And that's when broad intelligence can be replicated in the artificial world, right? So why am I mentioning this? The reason why I'm mentioning this is because right now in our context, there are only a handful of big companies that have access to all four of these things, right? We're talking about Amazon, Facebook, Google, and a few other, handfuls. And they have the machineries, they have the data, they have the connectivity, and goddammit, they have the intelligence. So what worries me isn't the intelligence. What worries me most is how most of us, a lot of us, are oblivious of what's happening right? In this, in this world of cell phones, we have this amazing cell phone in our pocket, the same cell phone that has more capacity than than when they launched Apollo 11. All the computers in NASA had less of a capacity than our cell phone have today. And what do we use it for? We use it for
still it
selfies.
freezes, It's kind of like, what the fuck's going on?
But we use it for selfies. We use it
Yeah.
for like doing YouTube videos of like makeup. And I'm not trying to, like devalue these activities. We are human. We have these social activities. But at the end of the day, my God, what is happening comparing to like our capacity? Like we need to like get on board on this, like the change of what is happening today and be proactive.
All right, so the message from here is stop taking fucking selfies, change the world. I'm gonna wrap it up because we need to go into the questions. Okay. And they probably have got questions that are more interesting than mine. The first of all, but I wanna wrap it up with this one. Everybody has got a useless superpower. Everybody has got a lot of superpowers, we know, but what is your useless superpower? Something that you do particularly well, but it's like completely worthless and useless?
What's yours?
I've got a lot, to be honest, and I could keep you on for an hour. But
give me an example.
Like a good example is when you just like every day you just leave your home, you lock it, and then when you're 50 meters away, it's like, did I fucking lock the door? It's like, walk back to it and you check it. That's a good useless superpower.
I have one.
All right.
But if I say that, okay, it's not really a superpower. So I do something really fun called inconspicuous cosplay.
All right.
Do you guys know what cosplay is?
Cosplay, yeah.
So inconspicuous cosplay is the opposite. So you dress as normal clothes, but like in character. So like you can like wear a tie and like with a longer coat and become like Harry Potter, but like no one actually will recognize until you say like I'm actually Harry Potter today, and like of course you are Harry Potter.
Yeah, I know what I mean.
So you can be actually in character all day long.
All right.
But still blend in.
Okay.
So that's
it's
my
socially
superpower.
Acceptable, right?
Yes, exactly.
That's a good one. Let's give it up for Cecilia, please. All right. We ran a little bit over the time, so here's the rules for the questions. There need to be one question per person, really direct, no pitching about your company, and please be respectful of other people's time. So, who's that? Yeah, Mark is going to be our, here.
I'm scared.
Cecilia, great to have you here, Adriana. One good example I saw on sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
One of the good examples I saw was like a little statue made with AI that could sell itself on a store, replicate itself, build another one with machines, and sell itself to other places and send it. All being made with AI. So that was like my amazing example, not only on cars, but this was made by a girl from MIT, and it was an amazing project. But besides that, what are your projects for 2018?
That's a good question.
So after Singularity, I had like a crisis. So I basically delegated all my work at Mob, at Fab Cafe, at Meet, at Future Funded. I took out a loan because I need to sustain, and I'm writing a book.
All right. Good. What's the book about?
The book is about Humanity 2.0, interconnectivity between cells, self, society, and the new machines.
When is it coming out?
It's coming up in December.
All right, we gotta wait. So it might be 2019, actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's out there, now I have to do it.
Yeah. Next question. No, it's okay. I'm just asking if there are more. Yeah, there's one there. There's always questions, start, Brian. We've got the best crowd ever. There's always questions. Never that uncomfortable moment of no questions. Never happened.
You can ask me
48
anything.
events. Huh?
You can ask me anything.
Yeah.
How's it going? It's Trent Simonetti from University of Delaware. I was just wondering, what makes you think like a robot can accumulate wealth without being claimed as someone else's property?
Good question, because, well, you shouldn't say robot, because robots actually don't do much. We've had robots forever. I think you're talking about AI that have self-intelligence, right? Is that what you're referring to? Okay. I think that there comes a point when if we're not prepared, I'm not saying it will happen, I'm saying it might happen. And we as humans, I mean, you've seen Black Mirror, you've seen all these possibilities that will just get out of our hands. I am trying to be provocative, and I'm saying that this possibility is a very potential possibilities that is kind of sort of happening already. So if you don't know, in the cryptocurrencies world, there is a new cryptocurrency called IOTA. IOTA is made for, especially for IoTs, Internet of Things, and they're specified on the machine economy. So we are already thinking about how to give them enough privileges so that they can negotiate among themselves, but not enough so that they can go, wild. So, and that's a really gray area we're talking about here. We have an AI expert. Did he just leave, Pascal? we can ask him more about it. But I mean, these are the questions that we need to be talking about now.
Can we have a last question over there? Yeah, there in the back. All right.
Hello. Do you have any regrets with Mob?
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Did you expect this one?
Uh,
Who's the person to take her out?
Did I have any regret in Mob? No, absolutely not. We learned so much. There are a lot of things that could have been done differently, but in any type of business entrepreneurship, that's the way to go. And I don't think that any other way it would happen the way it is. Mm-hmm. I regret not starting maybe earlier, and I think we would have had a bigger advantage. We started in a good time, but a little bit earlier would have been better. But other than that, I would say, people always ask me, why did you build Mob? And I said, well, I came to Barcelona and I didn't know anyone, and now I have 300 friends.
Yeah, well, that's a good one. All right, thank you very much for the questions. I'm gonna end up with a bit of an unusual request. So it's good that they came here. We need to promote more like social change. Actually, every year I donate my birthday to Charity Water. I don't know if you know it, and it's an NGO that basically helps you to raise funds for people who need clean water all over the globe, because we take it for granted, but not everyone has it, right? So if you follow me on Twitter, I have a campaign. I'm trying to raise $1,000. We are slightly over the 50%. So if you're gonna donate, please do it. If you're not, just at least spread the word so that your contacts are gonna do it, because it's gonna change a lot of lives for the better. So with that, I'm just gonna thank you for coming. Thank you for kicking ass in the first event of the year. We're gonna move to the next room where there's like catering, there's drinks. Please don't pile up here. Cecilia's gonna come, right? Just don't accumulate here. We're just gonna be removing the mic and everything. Thank you very much for coming.